It's reached the magic hour of 1, and I guess we can go ahead and get started. I'm sure we'll have folks joining us as we go along, but we've got quite a busy agenda, and I want to give plenty of time to our presenters and plenty of time for questions and what have you. So to everyone, welcome. Spring meeting virtual again, and hopefully the last virtual meeting we'll have. We came to a consensus within the board back probably in March to go ahead and do this virtually. We were very conservative, but in retrospect, I think it was probably the safest move, and so here we are. So we've got some really great speakers starting out the day today, and I'll go ahead if anyone has any business items they'd like to throw at me right off the bat, feel free. And if not, I'll go ahead and start introducing our speakers. The idea of having everyone introduce themselves is awkward, to say the least. But if you do ask a question, just of course, identify yourself and where you work and what your affiliation is with GCOOS, and I think that'll suffice. So without further ado, Dr. Bill Burnett, boy, a good friend of mine. We've known each other for a long time. Currently serving as the director of the National Data Buoy Center, and I can personally attest to the fact that you couldn't get a better guy in that position right now. Bill served at NDBC as the Mission Control Center branch chief. I actually relieved Bill from that job as he went over to be the technical director at the Commander Naval Meteorology and Oceanography Command as a senior executive, to which he was appointed in January of 2012. Bill at Buoy Center and at the Navy has done a lot of work internationally, and I really look forward to having him involved with GCOOS on that level and many other levels as well. He's a graduate of the University of Oklahoma and has a master's and PhD from the University of Southern Mississippi, which he attained right there at the Stennis compound. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome and thank Dr. Bill Burnett for joining us today. Bill, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. It's great seeing you, and it's great to be back with everybody. Certainly a different hat for me. I have talked many times with GCOOS as a Navy employee, as the technical director of the Naval Meteorology and Oceanography Command. We call it the rebranding of Bill Burnett now as the director of the National Data Buoy Center. And yeah, it's just, I did a lot with GCOOS when I was at the Data Buoy Center before, sir, as you said, with the Mission Control Center. And I look forward to working again closely in this regard with the team. And the remarks I'm going to give today will highlight some of the thoughts I have as kind of NDBC was a little entranced for a while, I would say, and just working with others, and we're going to break that mold and really become more extroverted than introverted over the next coming years. So I became the director in January, just thrilled to be here. Similar to the Navy, we fought through the COVID here at the Data Buoy Center. We had people out on ships maintaining the network the entire time. We had people located on site. Not everybody was at home, but many were in the office. And we did it because we operate the world's largest maritime observing network. And we maintain it at above 80% platform availability. And I'll say that there are a number of nations, a few in particular, who have tried to rival the U.S. in operating that large of a network, even a quarter the size of the network. They've tried to maintain a buoy network is similar to what we're doing at the Data Buoy Center, and they've been unsuccessful. The reason we are successful and we're so effective and efficient is that we've done it for over 50 years. We have a lot of knowledge and experience in maintaining this network. All right. I'm assuming you can see the slides. Hopefully, give me a thumbs up on center mission. They're great. Okay. So it's an exciting time for the National Data Buoy Center. I won't read the mission to you, but I will say from the White House to the Department of Commerce to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to the National Weather Service, where we work for, there are 2 of 3 strategic themes that play directly into what the National Data Buoy Center does. The first one is increasing the ocean climate weather observations. That's a strategic goal that's mentioned at the White House through the Department of Commerce. And that's what we do. We obtain real-time in situ weather and ocean observations. The second is interacting and enhancing the blue economy. And again, that's something that the Data Buoy Center does. We're excited to be a part of that. And we want to really become an influencer in terms of how the blue economy moves in the future. So I said we had 50 years of experience at the Data Buoy Center. That's when we were located here in the late 60s. We were the first tenant to be at Stennis after the Saturn rocket program. And Senator Stennis and the complex wanted to do 2 things. The first was they wanted to, of course, go into space, understand space, and be a part of the space race. But the other is understanding and observing the ocean. So it made sense at the time where the Data Buoy Center, who was a component of the Coast Guard, we actually operated, we were a component of the U.S. Coast Guard. And then in the 70s, when the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration was formed, NDBC became a part of them. The picture on the top left is an image of the Coast Guard standing up their office in front of building 1100. That's the NASA headquarters building you might be familiar with. Senator Jackson Balch, who was the mayor of Stennis at the time, is next seated at the podium next to the Coast Guard officer. And then on the right-hand side, you see a number of Coast Guard officers next to a 3-meter weather buoy, and in the background are facilities that we've been in for 50 years. Joe's very familiar with them. They house Saturn rockets. Data Buoy Center had a lot of 10-meter buoys and 12-meter buoys that were in there. But we're really outgrown the facility, and we don't need that much space. And to be honest with you, the facility is starting to show its age as well. And as we're trying to get a new workforce in and a younger workforce, they come around and look at our facilities, and that'll get a really pleasant feeling about the facilities that they're in. So we're looking to maybe move to new facilities that can make the younger workforce a little bit happier about where they're going to be a part of. So we do operate the world's largest. It used to be unmanned. Well, no, it's been a network that's been anchored for 50 years. Many of the weather buoys that you see there, 106 weather buoys located. Those are the yellow triangles that are located at first in the deep ocean, and then we moved into the coastal areas. The Coastal Marine Automated Network that you might be familiar with, 43 stations located around the U.S. and other parts of the country. The TAO array, which is a climate observing array. I'm going to talk a little bit more about TAO in a few slides, but 55 stations in the equatorial Pacific. That does the climate array observing is really critical to telling the U.S. are we in La Nina conditions or El Nino conditions. Right now, you may know that we're in La Nina. We've been in a La Nina condition that's been observed in our array for over 3 years. And what that translates to for us on the Gulf Coast is, unfortunately, higher than average hurricane season. So as you've been familiar with over the last 2 years, with La Nina, we've had 2 rather unfortunate hurricane seasons in the Gulf Coast. Not saying that it's going to be in the Gulf Coast again, but we can say that the averages of hurricanes in the Atlantic are going to be higher than normal because of a La Nina season. And then finally, the Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunami, DART. Those are the red symbols that you see. Started in 2000 with the Indonesian tsunami that you might be familiar with that occurred in 2004. The U.S. then made an effort to build a tsunami network that is the rim of the Pacific, some in the Atlantic and in the South Pacific as well. That's been a critical network. It's this warning network, so it's very different from where the National Data Buoy Center started as just taking weather observations, and now we're running one of the key and only high-end tsunami monitoring networks in the world. You may be familiar with the Meteo tsunami that occurred from the volcanic eruption in January of this year. We monitored it. We saw that we found the effects of a tsunami on our dart buoys, but I'm not sure the tsunami warning centers were really set up for a Meteo tsunami. But we did see the tsunami in the network, and we were able to give advanced warning to a number of different countries about that tsunami wave progressing across the Pacific. And I will say, in our weather buoy network, as a corollary, you can go back and see the pressure, the atmospheric pressure differences that were caused by the Meteo tsunami. And there was a couple in the Pacific, or in the Gulf of Mexico, that registered that effect as the tsunami atmospheric pressure wave was rotating around the Earth. So you are probably, and I don't need to tell you, but I'm going to anyway, you know, what type of technologies we're operating in the Gulf of Mexico. Weather buoys, starting on the left side there, you see that there's our typical weather buoy with the new payload called GCOOS, a self-contained ocean observing system. There's a number of interesting parts about this type of buoy. The fascinating thing is, as I've gotten back into the job, is to see that we have two anemometers. One is a digital, and the other is a mechanical anemometer. I've always wanted to see NDBC move in that direction. It's wireless capability. It's got new wave sensors. It's really the team did a fantastic job over the last 10 years in developing this capability. So we don't have to put everything into the well of a 3-meter buoy. And you might remember that to get into the 3-meter buoy, you had to open the hatch. Stephen Howden, I think he still has one of those buoys. You have to get in and get in the guts, and you have waves coming in. It's just not a good situation. So having everything outside of the buoy that our buoy hoppers can get on and fix the equipment is really exciting for us. In the middle, you see tsunami. It's a communication buoy. The real guts of it, the brains of it, are the bottom pressure recorder located at the bottom of the ocean, in the deep ocean, and in a coastal marine station, which I believe is Molasses Reef. They told me what the picture was yesterday, and of course I forgot about it. What you don't see here are the autonomous vehicles. And the next time I brief you, we're going to talk about moving out in terms of our, used to be called unmanned, then we called it uncrewed. National Data Buoy Center, we like to call them unanchored, because we have all our systems are anchored. These other systems are unanchored. But that type of capability to, if there's a buoy outage, what can we do to send an autonomous vehicle, surface vehicle, out in the area to collect data until that buoy is restored. So a little bit about what we've done the last year or so and what we did this year. 2021 operations, like I said, we fought through COVID. We conducted 2 ocean cruises, one in the Pacific, which went from March through December, over 40,000 cumulative miles, and 94 buoys that were serviced. I don't know if you can see the cursor, but what we will do, and I'll show you in the next slide, is we leave from San Diego, we go down to the Pacific, or to the equatorial Pacific, work on some tower lines, go to service the Hawaii buoy array, and then we just counterclockwise through the Pacific. We'll go from the West Coast up through the Aleutians, over into the West Pacific, fixing the dart arrays, back along the tower array, working a number of those, and then we return home in December. And we rotate crews, very similar to what the Navy Meteorology and Oceanography Command does. Rotate crews every 30 days to go out and do the service visit. On the Atlantic side, that was a bit shorter, not as many buoys, certainly not the same distance as the Pacific, but we serviced 42 buoys and over 11,000 miles. So The pictures you see on the top left, you may have heard of bird strikes that happen with aircraft. That was a ship strike that occurred when a vessel just decides they can't navigate around a small 3-meter buoy and they run into it, so we lose the top of it. Rather unfortunate, but we restored it with the new buoy to the right of the picture. And then just the amazing type of marine growth that you see on buoys that are at the bottom right-hand side, and what a new restored buoy looks like. So 2022, and we actually have an article that is picked up by national publications. I used to have you could Google NDBC and weather buoy, but it's what we're doing this year, we're trying to get more press out about how it's just not you go out and service a weather buoy. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Starting with on the top right-hand side, we put everything together here at the Data Buoy Center. We buy the equipment, we maintain the equipment, we get the inventory, the mooring, the chain, the anchors, we quality control all the observations, and we look at the instruments to make sure that they're quality data. Then we break them down, load them up on trucks, and they go off to the west and east coast to begin the services of the visit. And we take our team to go out and meet usually in the Pacific, it's a ship called the Bluefin. So that ship arrived, and in March of this year, they left San Diego to service the 125 and 140 line that you see highlighted. And some pictures on the bottom used to be a tow buoy, but it's now a bird haven. But we replaced that with a new buoy on the left-hand side. And then when we went through the Hawaiian island chain, there's 7 buoys that are located up there. And you can see the new buoys that we've deployed in the area. I'll talk a little bit about we're recapitalizing our tropical atmosphere ocean network. And we had a prototype tow buoy that we deployed next to another buoy, and that's in the center. If you can see my cursor, it says prototype new tow buoy. I'll tell you a little bit more about that because I think you'll be interested in how we are collecting these ocean observations. And then we worked very closely with the Coast Guard to service some of our buoys, and we actually use the Coast Guard to take helicopters out to lighthouses where we have these seaman stations, and they're servicing that station that's in the East Coast. And the picture over on the left-hand side in the center is one of the Alaskan buoys that we service in the Prince William Sound. So now more focused on the Gulf of Mexico. These are the locations of the buoys that we have with our stations. 42,001, 2, and 3. Those are buoys that actually been collecting observations in the same location for almost 50 years. Quite a great data set of the weather and some of the surface ocean observations in the central Gulf of Mexico. And then you could see as time went on, 20, 30 years, we started building a more coastal network and deploying these seaman stations. But we do have a great partnership, a critical partnership with our IUs team that I see Carl's on. Great to see you online, sir. We became a data assembly center for IUs back in 2004, and IUs DAC. And we've been maintaining that critical, close relationship with IUs ever since then, and certainly with our regional association and their partners. So those green dots are all the partner stations that we're collecting data from right now, servicing that data up through the GTS, and we're sharing technology as well. So that's one of the reasons I want to talk a little bit about the new recapitalizing of the tow array, is because some of that technology we hope to share with our regional associations and certainly with GCOOS. The types of observations are standard observations that I think you're all familiar with. What you don't see here on the list, and what I would like to see us collect more data of, are ocean observations. From the surface down in the deep water. What we're doing with the tow array, I'm looking to see how we can translate that to our weather buoys and some of the more ocean observations that we can collect. And I believe Carl's in the same mode of, hey, we want to collect more ocean observations as well as weather observations. Our partners, they're also collecting tide levels, visibility, water quality. You know, how can we bring that into some of the station observations that are core to NDBC? And that's what I'm pushing the team to start developing more capabilities for. For many years, we were collecting ocean data from the oil and gas platforms in the Gulf of Mexico. This project was near and dear to my heart. We started it with the notice to leasing, which occurred in 2004, working with the Mineral Management Service, and then it became the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. And that data set from weather observations and the ocean currents that were collected on the platforms through ADCPs, just a wealth of observations. And we started this program in 2004. Of course, Katrina hit in 2005. And that ocean data set that was collected was just fascinating to see the ocean currents, deep water currents sloshing back and forth, all collected from these oil and gas platforms. And we've been collecting that and servicing that data up for a number of years, and providing data management of that information. And then in a great partnership, we're very blessed and happy to work with the GCOOS for being an outstanding partner to continue this data set management of the critical data set. It's a long time frame data that allows an interdecadal analysis of climate changes in the Gulf of Mexico circulation. So we're very thrilled to be able to hand off this partnership and this capability to GCOOS, and we look forward to working with GCOOS in the future to continue to support the data collection on these oil and gas platforms. Another pet project of mine, I actually started HF Radar back 2002, I believe. The Navy, when I was with the Navy, we placed a CODAR system in Gulfport and had that operating for over a year, collecting surface current data until Hurricane Katrina went and took it out in 2005. But it's great to see the HF Radar network managed and led by the IU's community, and certainly GCOOS to get these data sets and these instruments out there. We're partnering. We're one of two national nodes for disseminating HF radar data, and we have 18 stations right now. A few of them are out, and what we do is we get hourly gridded surface current data, the total vectors that we distribute via threads, and we actually send this data to our National Weather Service forecast offices on their AWIP system, so they can go into the system when we send it on through the GTS, and they can pull that data up and see it in AWIPs. And it's important for them to see, okay, what are the ocean currents doing in the area? Something that hope that we can increase the amount of platforms that we have in the Gulf of Mexico. I would like to see many more of these types of nodes out there, because ocean currents are certainly a critical data set for not only the National Weather Service forecast offices, but also for anybody who's going out and operating in the maritime environment. So emerging observational data sets really started when I was with the Navy, working with DARPA on this ocean of things, and I kind of took the partnership that we developed in the Navy and brought it over here to the National Data Buoy Center. It's really about crowdsourcing of observations in areas. So you have your foundational buoys, you have uncrewed systems, but these types of floats that DARPA has provided through their Oceans of Things is really just a fascinating data set. And it's interesting to see all the information that they're collecting, like ocean temperature, sea state, and even vessel activity. So DARPA, if you're not familiar with, they have three types of environmentally compliant drifters that house passive sensors that can survive in the ocean environment. So you get a good understanding of what the ocean surface currents are, and you get a better understanding of what types of observations are out there. And the Gulf of Mexico has just been a great place to be able to manage this data set in a close partnership with the University of Southern Mississippi as well. The data is actually being served through the ERDAP servers, and we're working closely with the Southeast Coastal Ocean Observing Regional Association to support the data throughput for these types of observations. DARPA, their goal is not in the thousands, but in the tens or even hundreds of thousands of these types of sensors that are out there that are environmentally compliant, that biodegrade, so they collect their information, and the goal is not to harm the environment by putting out so many sensors that are out there. But for us, we have to take on, okay, what does this mean, and how do we serve these data sets in buffer and GRIB and through the WMO, and what kind of IDs do they have? And just a lot to think about, but this is where I believe we're going as a community of having a mega data set of ocean observations. And I will say we're also working with the Naval Research Laboratory to be able to process this data, and NRL is actually using the data sets to improve their oceanographic models in the 3 and 4D data assimilation techniques. So ERDAP, a little bit about ERDAP. We are standing up and working with IUs on ERDAP servers, and we're actually moving our IU's regional associated data feeds from the individual organizations to an IU's ERDAP server. That helps us. I think right now we're still operating FTP servers, and I was kind of shocked when I heard that we're still doing FTP. There's, from the Navy side, a lot of concerns about the security environment of using FTP. So going into ERDAP and serving up data this way is certainly the way to go. I want to thank GCOOS as being one of the RAs that has completed the migration. You can see that GLOS and Socorro are regional associations that are in progress, and we'll get to NARACOOS and CARACOOS hopefully in the near future. There are 3 regional associations that aren't going to be migrated, or not certainly right now, just because they're not sending NDBC any buoy or coastal station data. So a little bit, going now outside of the Gulf of Mexico, back into the equatorial Pacific, but I want to talk to you about what we're doing improvements in the TAO array that's being informed through the Tropical Pacific Observing System. It's a team, a wide range agency team that's informing us not only about what type of data they want to collect on TAO, but how often to collect that data, what type of instruments to use on the network, and then what's really kind of exciting for me is moving the network around to be able to collect the climate signals that we need to with the TAO, and so changing and removing some stations and putting them in different areas. So this is what the TAO array looks like, or is going to look like in the future. The orange boxes show what the historical stations were, and it's usually 7 to 8 stations located at different longitudes, like 95, 110, 125. But we're going to remove some stations, and those are the emitted stations, or the X's that you see on this graph. And I think it's around 12 stations that will probably take offline as we're reconstituting the network. And then we're going to move into different areas so we can increase in different areas. And those are shown by some of the red boxes there, where just this inform for us is how to improve the observation of the climate signal. I'm really happy to announce that we did receive some Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funding to do recapitalization of the TAO array. So that's quite a bit of money that over the next 2 years to recapitalize the TAO array, and actually we received additional money for the DART array as well. So those two, that funding is going to improve the recapitalization of TAO. And I think with the DART tsunami systems, it's kind of different for us. It's a little difficult for the team to get their head around, but there are companies that sell tsunometers and DART systems. So instead of us building and all the inventory that's required to build these systems, we just go to the DART store and make an order in for 10 to 15 and place that order, get it, and then we'll go out and put the new sonometers in the water. That's really, for the blue economy, that's kind of an exciting way of moving forward. Instead of doing everything in-house at NDBC, how can we enhance the blue economy by supporting the marketplace by going out and buying these systems? There's not a TAL there's not a TAL Amazon service yet, so we can't do it with TAL. And really, TALs vary with the amount of data that they're collecting. It's something that we just have to be careful about, the scientific observations versus the DART, which is one observation, bottom pressure recorded data, which is informed really through the tsunami warning centers. So what does the new TAL array look like? On the left-hand side, it shows what where the temperature, salinity measurements that are being collected, 10 subsurface temperatures, and you see the locations in meters of where they're collected. On the right-hand side, we're going to increase the number of sensors in there. So we're going to add up to 7 more surface salinity temperature sensors and some ADCP data as well. Plus, we're going to extend on the MET package with a radiation, rain, and barometer. The reason I'm telling you this is this will help us inform what the new generation of weather observations, weather buoys, will look like. This is a graphical representation of the old array on the left-hand side and how it was operating and collecting real-time currents. So instead of what we used to do in the past is have a separate anchor that had a acoustic Doppler current profiler that was taking the observations. Now we're going to actually incorporate the ADCPs into the mooring array. So we'll just have one array, and we can put these moorings on additional TAL lines instead of just the separate ones. I think we had 4 throughout the TAL, and we'll increase the number of ADCP information that we have. And so what does the data look like? Really, some of it's to improve the atmospheric boundary layer and the marine layer. You see on the top part of the graph, the 2 measurements from the what we call old TAL, which was sea surface temperature, and then at 25 meters, what the temperature looked like. Now, with the additional information that we have at 5, 10, and 15, we're getting a lot more observations and a lot more detail within the boundary layer and the mixed layer. That's informing us, all right, how deep is the heat content of the ocean, and just getting additional information that we never had before. The next slide gives you a different way of looking at it. In the standard TAL refresh on the left-hand side, you see that there are measurements at the surface at 25, 50 meters, and the profile of what those temperatures look like. But on the right-hand side, as you add in some of these additional sensors, you can see that on June 17th or July 17th to July 24th, the heat content, where we thought stopped around 50 meters, actually extended quite a bit further. So it gives us additional information of, okay, how deep is that heat content? And then at the surface, where we expected some of the surface boundary layers and the mixed layer to go down to maybe 25 meters, we can see that it's not as deep as before, and it's actually at the 5 meter level. So understanding, okay, how deep is the mixed layer content and the heat content of the ocean is really critical for us as we move forward in the new moorings. And so with the what we call IIJA money that we haven't received yet, but we hope to get in the near future, we'll be able to start recapitalizing the TAL array, and those 55 buoys moved in different locations are going to have much more capability that will service up to the nation. So going forward, what are we doing about 2023 and beyond is what I like to say is how do we own the ocean? And owning the ocean means taking in and getting as much observations as we can in different areas through, at the top left-hand side, crowdsourcing, working with the Naval Research Laboratory and using what autonomous vehicles, shipping, whatever is out there that can collect observations, getting that to us so we have an understanding, okay, what is the ocean doing right now in real time? A kind of an enhanced, that's a mythical in the center at top is a mythical mission control center. That's my dream. I'd like to see as a mission control center, big screens and lots of people. That's not going to happen, but I can still dream, and that's, if I had a magic wand, that's what the mission control center at NDBC would look like. You never know. It's kind of like NASA's command center, and maybe we can get there someday. On the right-hand side, I talked about the oceans of things and moving forward with that. And in the bottom left-hand side, the tau array and the recapitalization of the tau array and the DART array. But really, that you see on the right-hand side at the bottom, we're only measuring, and if somebody has a different number, I'd love to hear it, but I'm guessing at best 10% of in situ real-time ocean observations. We need to do a much better job, I think, from the White House, the Department of Commerce, everybody's saying we need more real-time in situ ocean observations. And how are we going to do that? Well, the way I think about it is we'll have foundational buoy moored anchored systems out there that we've been operating for 50 years, and we'll continue to do that. That foundational array is critical. But how do we use the oceans of things, shipping, and autonomous vehicles to really start collecting observations in those areas where we don't have observations right now? So for the Gulf of Mexico, the challenge that I give to this group is we need to develop an ocean mesonet in the Gulf of Mexico. In the background, you see where we have partner platforms, IU platforms, NDBC platforms, but there's just a lot of areas that we have right now that aren't being observed. And we need to have continual in situ ocean observations. So I highlight those areas, and my challenge to the group, and part of what I'd like to see is how do we get after those open areas and create. In Oklahoma, there's a number of what we call mesonets that are located around that. Some of them are operated by farmers who just happen to have a weather station that's incorporated into the mesonet. You know, what can we do to work with fishermen, with the shipping industry, oil and gas, to start covering all of these areas and developing that Gulf of Mexico mesonet? So I throw that open to the group, and you know, for the Data Buoy Center, I'm happy to have that conversation of what can we do to really get after a mesonet in this area, and where we can all stand up and say with GCOOS and just your fantastic website that you're monitoring or you're running right now, you know, what is it that we can do that we know if there's a mishap in Deepwater Horizon, we can take that information in real time, say, okay, we know where the oil effluent is going to go and what the impact's going to be. So being back at the Data Buoy Center has been really very exciting for me. I'm thrilled to be back here. I did say, you know, NDBC has been a bit introverted for a while, so I'm pushing them to be extroverted, and we're upping our social media game that you may have seen. We did establish a MySpace page, so we are very excited to have you go out and Kristen doesn't know. Yeah, it's a MySpace page. Yeah, I've got one friend right now, but hopefully if you can join our MySpace, we'll have more friends than that. Somebody's laughing. Okay, I appreciate that. No, we do have Facebook, LinkedIn. It's taking a while for the National Weather Service to approve our Twitter account. For some reason, I had a stretch goal of every buoy tweeting an observation once an hour. So you can go on and follow your favorite buoy on Twitter. Get a little pushback on that, but I do want to see us move more and more into providing as much information as we can via social media to share what we have with not only GCOOS, but also the public. So I will stop there. I'm sorry I've been broadcasting for the entire time, and I look forward to now and receive and answer questions mode. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Great briefing. Lots happening at the Buoy Center, a lot of change, a lot of good change. In my opinion, a lot of much needed change. One observation I have in terms of the GOMEX Ocean Mesonet, we had a briefing as part of Jorge's spring webinar series with Mexico. They have accumulated a lot of data, especially in that southwesternmost blank circle that you had on your chart. So again, as we move forward, and trying to reestablish and increase our interactions with Mexico, I think they can be very, very vital players in creating a better database, especially in the Western Gulf, and trying to alleviate the issues and the voids that we now experience. Do we have any questions? I'm watching the question box. I'm not so sure I know where to look for raised hands.
Joe, I just checked. There aren't any raised hands in the chat box there.
How do we raise
Okay,
hands?
Pat Hogan, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I did it manually.
It really worked well.
Good to see you again. Congratulations on your new position. Exciting times ahead for sure. I have two questions, but the first one is you mentioned you're going to use uncrewed or unanchored systems, but I think what I heard was you're going to use them in an intermittent fashion when you have a buoy that needs servicing. You're not going to really, or correct me, I think I heard you say you're not going to stand up an operational observing system based on uncrewed systems. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a great question, Pat. Thanks, and it's great seeing you. I would say that's a nuanced question. We're going to use uncrewed systems to mitigate outages that we have in the network. That's just, it makes sense that we're looking at, we have a couple outages in the Gulf of Mexico right now. We want to work with some uncrewed surface vehicles to get out there, collect observations for us as a virtual buoy until we can get out and service the network, and then we don't need the uncrewed vessels anymore. And from a cost estimate, it's very costly to get an autonomous vessel out there to collect the data for us compared to just the ship time to go out and service the buoy outage. But there's the foundational network, but then there's all these other areas that could use observations. So to answer the second part of the question is, yeah, I do see NDBC as one of the enablers to go out and work in driving uncrewed systems in these areas and collecting observations as much as we can. I haven't seen yet uncrewed vessels that are able to spend long-term dwell time in different areas. It's still a difficulty, but if they can go out and obtain larger areas for data collection, then yeah, I definitely want to drive NDBC to be the piloting and the data collecting and the servicing up of that information and partnering with the companies that are out there.
I had one more, if I can. I'll make it quick. With the TAO TPS or TPOS arrays, I noticed you were removing more buoys than you were adding. That was, one aspect of it. But the other one was, it seems the strategy that you're taking is to add more resolution per sensor rather than add more overall sensors. And I'm wondering what the logic or what the reasoning behind that. It might be cost. In fact, it very well probably is cost. But if there's more of a scientific reasoning behind that particular strategy. Thanks.
Yeah, and so that wasn't our decision. That's informed from the Tropical Pacific Ocean system. It's a science team that has gone out and looked at, okay, some of the buoys that we have foundationally that have stayed in one place, they actually have thought about ways that we can move some of the moored buoys in different areas depending on the El Nino or La Nina conditions. But that's all informed from the TPOS, and it's an international group actually. So they've said, hey, we can remove some buoys, which for us is helpful in terms of cost to operate the network. But it's certainly not a one-for-one, but they are moving and adding moored buoys in different locations. One thing we have to get around is that 95 West line that's still being vandalized. And every time I look, it's almost the entire line is out. Somehow we can't keep moored buoys in that location. We're going to have to go to a autonomous surface, subsurface type of network to maintain station keeping in that area. But TPOS hasn't come up with that type of recommendation yet, but we're all looking at it. Thank you.
Dr. Nick.
Yeah, I just have a comment. I think it's wonderful that you're actually starting to put current measuring devices on a lot of these buoys. Subsurface currents are often overlooked, and they're so relevant to so many applications. For example, hurricanes, oil spills, you name it. Currents transport these, whatever is in the water, around, and have a really big impact on not just the climate, but also health and a number of other projects. So I applaud this. I don't know how many times I've looked at NOAA data buoys, after a hurricane's gone through, and there's been no current measurements. There's been some temperature and salinity, but current really helps us understand the full picture, and not just a scalar quantity. So thank you.
Thank you, Nick. No, I appreciate that. And what the goal is, okay, what we've learned in TAL, how do we translate that to the weather buoys and start incorporating more ADCPs in our mooring line? So definitely, we're a learning organization, and we're going to increase the number of observations there. Thank you.
Bill, along that line, I know Scoop was initially designed with a thermistor string, and getting kind of toward what Nick was talking about. How far into the future are you looking before you think you'll have an operational thermistor string and or current measurement capability on the surface moored weather buoys?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd love to see it in the next 5 years, but we're going to be knee deep in just the TAL and DART recap, and trying to finish off spending all the IIJ money to recapitalize those networks. Then after that will be the recapitalization of the weather ocean buoy network. I believe we could do some of it concurrently in parallel and not serial, but there's the team is already stretched kind of thin trying to get everything finished with the new recapitalization of the two next networks. But I'll push them as hard as I can.
Thanks.
Stephen had his hand up.
Yeah.
Stephen, yeah, please.
Yeah, thanks for that brief. It was really good. And I was thinking, I know the funding for Sentinel sites, or like in Bay St. Louis, come out from outside of NOAA, I think, for the structures, but certainly having a set of those in the coastal Louisiana would help with that Mesonet, help with HF radar. It would cut across the mission of National Data Buoy Center, IUS, and National Ocean Service, where we'd get those water levels where we need them. We get HF radar, we get the winds and other meteorological parameters. So I don't know if there's any influence NDBC can have on, increasing those stations. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, so we are always informed by the requirements of NOAA, and we work closely with IUS and the director of IUS to help us understand, okay, we can't have observations everywhere, so what are we going to do to take observations in the critical points that we can? So I'm with you, Stephen, but it's always, I don't create my own requirements. I'm always informed by NOAA and National Weather Service and through IUS. So that's I kind of look to them to tell me where they want their observations.
So what have you done in terms of international relations and collaboration? Are we back with the Data Buoy Cooperation Panel and other WMO activities?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm going out to the UK in a couple of months to meet with the UK Met. We're going to jump right back into the international community. Restart the ARMIC, start getting countries over here so we can get that going again. But if you remember when I was here last time, we had a huge role in an international community, and NDBC needs to play a strong leadership role in that, because there are a number of countries who want to build out these networks, and they need to learn from us what's the most effective and efficient way to do it. And so we have Taiwanese delegation that's coming at the end of the month to visit. South Korean delegation that's going to be later. We're working with the Navy to kind of use the visits to support both NOAA and Navy in that regard. But yeah, I want to see a strong international push that we had before.
Great. Any other question for Dr. Burnett? No, Jorge.
Thank you. Dr. Burnett, I actually have a question on some data that I've seen at some of the maps of the live stations on NDBC that seem to be sensors mounted on ships. So, I don't know if that's something that NDBC has done for a long time or something that will continue, on how relevant that data is for the work that you do.
So we actually ran the Volunteer Observing Ship program for many years at NDBC, and then that was transferred in 2014. But we announced yesterday at a NOAA meeting that the Volunteer Observing Ship program is coming back to NDBC in October. So we're going to run that program. Thank you, Joe. We're going to run that program. We're going to get more observations. There's a lot of, like, Maersk has this this effort where they want to place weather sensors. They're going to pay for it on all their ships, and they're saying, all right, who do we give this information to? And Data Buoy Center, I was like, yep, give it to us. We'll process it, get it out of the GTS, and get it out to the web. So we're getting back into that effort starting in October. So you'll see more weather observations and hopefully ocean observations from shipping companies.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up. I should have mentioned that in the brief.
Other questions? Okay, if not, I'd like to just close out the session by again thanking Dr. Burnett for sharing his time with us and his enthusiasm for the road ahead for NDBC. I really think it's going to be an exciting time, and I'll be interested to see too how NDBC as a physical plant changes, because as he mentioned, that the facilities are getting older, and it's really tough to keep them up to date and not inexpensive, say that. So that'll be interesting to see as well. So if you have any questions, any follow-on questions that you think of after some of the other presentations, feel free to forward them to me or to Jen Vreeland, and we can pass them on to Dr. Burnett. And once again, Bill, it's great seeing you. Congratulations. You're the right man in the right place at the right time. And I wish you all the best as you move forward. And again, thanks so much for sharing time and your thoughts with us today. Thanks.
Joe, there's
Thanks,
one
Steve.
more question in the chat box if there's time.
Yeah, we have time. Sure, I didn't see it, but go ahead.
Would you like me to read it, or do you see it?
No, I don't see it.
Okay, Catherine Weathers is asking, are you allotting any funding to cloud migration?
Yes, we're already, you may have heard last year there was an outage at the National Weather Service, their Network Operations Center. And NDBC had been working on moving into the cloud. And we had really some of the contracts set up to do some efforts in the cloud. And I wouldn't say we were getting pushback. It was just not going as fast as we wanted it to. But with the impact on in the Network Operating Center, we got the thumbs up and could execute some contracts right away to move into the Amazon cloud. And so my push to the group here at NDBC is I want to see all of NDBC in the cloud. And I want to see it sooner than later. I'm not really thrilled about running my own data center. I have still, and Joe knows this, we have servers on the third floor in buildings that are 50 years old and not conducive to operating a high-end computing center. So the cloud to me is the right way to go. I might be moving a bit too fast for some individuals in leadership, but that's for me to work out. But yeah, going into the cloud is just something that we have to do. Great question.
I love the thought of a NOAA SES moving too fast for the rest of the organization. That's great.
We're not recording this, are we? Is this being? No, just kidding. I know it's
Just
being.
kidding.
Joe,
We'll just
there's one
see if you can keep up with SpinRed.
There's one more comment from Mark Luther. I don't know if you have read it, if you'd like to read it.
No, go ahead, Chris, please.
So Dr. Mark Luther shared that the U.S. Coast Guard Admiral Bill Merlin, retired, was the young officer who stood up the National Data Buoy Center at Stennis in the 1960s, and that he's still very active in the Tampa Bay maritime community. Thanks for sharing that, Mark.
Yeah, and if he ever wants to come visit NDBC, we will roll out the red carpet to him. That's fantastic. But most of the leaders at NDBC back in the 60s and 70s, unfortunately, have passed away. So any connections that we have certainly with the Coast Guard, let me know, and we'll bring him on board. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Chris, do you see any other questions or hands?
No, I do not.
Okay. Well, then, Bill, we'll let you sign off. But again, by all means, if you wish to stay plugged in for the rest of the afternoon, you're more than welcome to say the least. So again, thanks so much for being with us.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.